The studio is a sacred environment as far as I'm concerned. It's
Why?
a place. It's a place where you can go with other people who want to express themselves, the way they want to do it, and you can meet, and it's recorded, and it's a very sacred environment. For me, it is anyway. And
how's it compared to playing live?
Completely different, totally different. The live, I mean, obviously you record something in the studio. You endeavour, like say, like this single that we're doing now, we're recording in the studio. People will want to hear it as they've heard the single, right? So when we go out playing live, we play it, we play the single exactly as it is. So that's where you have the crossover. But basically, there's a live thing and there's a recorded thing, and I'm learning about them still, you know, and I find it just fascinating. It's an education. Like every time we go into the studio, we're just learning more and more.
What sort of problems arise in a studio?
Just the only problem that arises is your inexperience, if you ever, not knowing about things, and
how does that show?
It just shows in your experience, I think, in having studio experience, basically. I think the more you're in the studio, just the more you take things, the more relaxed you are in it, the more of yourself you can feel more comfortable.
So a producer is important then?
The right man is very important, because he will bring out the best in you if he can see the best in you, if he's aware of your expression and the kind of person that, you know, the kind of mode that you're in.
This is the song that, you know, this is very much the song that we want to launch ourselves sort of outside of Ireland into Europe and anywhere else.
Do you think that's essential for any Irish band to think in terms of world markets, European markets?
Well, I mean, I myself have realised every sort of ambition I've had for Ireland as a member of the Atrix. I've realised everything, you know what I mean? Like, we've toured the country, we've a certain amount of fans, we've done TV work, and we did the Late Late Show, and we've done all that, and you know, I mean, I don't really see the point in repeating it, you know. I think not so much. I don't think one has to leave the country, like, as you know, like we live here. But yes, I think you have to go abroad if you want to sort of, I suppose, broaden the scope of what you're doing, you know. You just need to play to a bigger audience, to a different audience, you know.
Next, we talked to three people involved in making a single possible. Engineer Ken Kiernan, producer Midge Ure and record company man Harry Doherty. First, Ferdia asked Ken Kiernan if the recording session had gone well.
I think it was a fairly quick session, yeah. Sessions obviously go quick. I mean, if you're talking about Irish bands in particular, right, there are very few producers, experienced producers in this country. And when somebody like Midge comes in, it's very different for the band, because they're put in a situation, first of all, where they're under pressure in one way and they're relieved in another, and I think that can be a very good thing, depending on how the producer in question deals with it.
When I saw the band at first, they were in a rehearsal studio, their own place, and I'd known the stuff before I came over, because Harry Doherty had sent me a tape, and there was like half a dozen songs on it, demo songs, and obviously Double D had picked out which song they wanted to be the A-side, and the band could pick whatever they wanted to do for the B-side. So the main problem for me was cutting the song down, keeping all the good parts, making them better, and getting rid of the parts that were more suited to live playing than studio work. But to make a good sort of 3-minute single, you know, because it's very difficult to get a 5.5-minute song, which Wastelands was, you know.
What kind of difficulties are you up against when, you know, you're confronted with the live and the studio?
The main difficulty was the equipment of the band. The band are good players, very good players, and they've got real strong ideas about what they want to do. But their equipment, it's the same old story, you know. That young band, it's hard to get work, and they've just signed with a the first record label. The drums were very bad. The drums we had real problems with. We spent like 3 hours on the first day of the session just trying to stop them from rattling and just trying to hold them together with bits of tape and things. That was a major problem, but the rest of it went very easily, you know.
Why did you sign the Atrix?
Well, what happened with us was that Billy McGrath brought in a tape, the same tape that Midge was talking about, and we listened to it for a few days and homed in on Treasure in the Wasteland as a single right away, and knew that something had to be done with it. And then we took it the stage further, seeing them live, and we saw a lot of potential, you know, more potential than there wasn't, you know, an actual.
What kind of things now are you looking for?
Just an inventive band, a band that has an identity that sets itself up as different from a range of other bands, you know, and is not anonymous, because as a small label, that's the only thing that we can deal with. It are bands that have their own identity, and we can't afford just to sign, say, 10 bands that sound the same and hope that one of them makes it, you know. So what we do is we've got about maybe 3 or 4 bands on the label, but each one of them has got a totally different sound.
You've obviously got high hopes for the Atrix. What kind of market do you see them aimed at, or do you see a specific market?
Well, I mean, I won't have to say like immediately that listening to if you saw them live, you would say that they would immediately be a cult band, you know. But they happen to have the asset in songs like Treasure in the Wasteland that might span that cult audience for singles, and then obviously that would attract other listeners into the band. You know, they might originally not get if they didn't have the, say, things like hooks that Midge obviously homes in on as well because of his experience.
What kind of future do you see for them in the long term? Or do you think it'll be a slow, gradual process?
It's hard to say. It's much down to the band, and it's obviously a lot of hard work because there's a pretty much of a depression in the music business generally. It's down to them going out, playing live, and obviously us marketing them right, making sure hopefully that the record gets played. We're obviously confident that it will get played, and you know, nobody can forecast anything because nothing is assured. You know, it's the old thing is like 1% inspiration and 99%, you know, sweat. You know, so like there's no guarantee. Nobody can have a guarantee. All you can say is that you see a good band, and that you feel that you can offer them something that other record companies couldn't. You know, but you can't just say to them, right, we're going to make you pop stars overnight, because that's just not on. You know, you can just say, right, we'll release your record, and we'll work really hard to try and break it. You know, so, and hopefully by signing them in the first place, we're showing the faith that we have. You know, so it's a lot of hard work.
There's treasure on the wasteland, looking for the whip hand. Funny how they missed it, said goodbye and kissed it. Why did they dig it? Lying there so empty while living on the north side. Damages a pleasant life.
The Atrix there with their original version of Treasure on the Wasteland, taken from a compilation of Dublin rock bands on an album called Just for Kicks. Well, for the Irish record industry's point of view, I asked Dave Pennyfeather, the main man with Spider Records, exactly how the Irish record industry dealt with international competition from bands and groups like ABBA.
Well, it's a small market here, and the advantage that we have is that the artist is here all the time, working, doing the live gigs, available for TV, available for radio promotion, available for all sorts of promotion that the international artist might not be available for. Thereby, they themselves, the artists themselves, do an awful lot of their own promotion. The difficulties that arise are mainly in getting the records from distributor to retailer. A lot of the retail, I mean, last week there were 105 records released in England alone. Say another 10 Irish records came out the same week. That makes 115 records for the retailer to decide what is he going to put on his shelves or what is he not going to put on his shelves. the Irish ones usually fare out pretty badly because they're not receiving the same type of exposure in relation to point of sale materials like cardboard stand-ups and posters and things, shop window displays, that sort of stuff. It's uneconomical for the Irish companies to do that.
Well, in pure numbers there, they'd cover even less than 10% of what's being offered in any one given week, really, if it's only going to be 10 against 150.
In pure numbers, yeah. The retailers, as I say, they can receive the overflows from the British market of the point of sale material, which helps them, enhances their chances of selling the records at a retail level, because you have you might have a stand-up blow up Billy Joel standing in the shop there. Obviously, people go in, they see that there's a better chance that they're going to buy it. So what we have found with a lot of the Irish ones, it's sometimes necessary to sell them live at the gigs for impulse buying. If you find kids are fans of the band, they will buy the record because they want it. Invariably, another reason for that is that the bands might come into us, or the artists might come into us at the record company and say, look, what's happening, so many kids said in such and such a place last night that they can't get our record in the shops. It's they sort of be complaining that we're not putting them into the shops, but obviously we want to sell records, we want to get them into the shops, but if the shop isn't buying them, we can't force them into putting the record on the shelves.
What's something else, I think, Dave, that's of particular interest to the average guy, girl who's buying a record, is exactly where the money's going, who's getting the money, how much does the artist get, how much does the record company get? Could you give us an idea, just in rough terms, of where the money goes? In rough
terms, there's a manufacturing tax levy of 40%. There's the vinyl to make the record. The labels have to be put together. They all have to be bought. The bags that the record go into, they all have to be obviously bought and printed up. The artist gets their percentage royalty, which is usually can be anywhere between, depending on the strength of the artist, anywhere between 4% and I believe I heard this, that McCartney receives 22%. Now whether that's true, I don't know, but I'd say it's well worth it. It varies so much, but in the main, with Irish records, costs are so astronomically. Our costs are exactly the same as England. Our recording studio costs, everything is exactly the same, but our sales will never ever match the market that we're competing with, the big market that we're competing with. So the monies and royalties and that, the artist gets them, as I say, anywhere between 4%, and Irish companies can't afford to pay an awful lot more.
Costs, when you mention costs as being part of the breakdown, exactly how much would be involved from a record company's point of view in Ireland in making a record?
A single. Anything, depending on the studios you use, anything from £500 to £3,000 a single.
Right, lastly, Dave, you've heard the Atrix. They're signed to Double D now. Do you think that they stand a chance of breaking?
They're in a game at the moment that makes up with, it's 1,000,000 to 1 shot. It's 1,000,000 for anybody who goes into it. It's 1,000,000 to 1 shot because there's so many others trying to do the same thing. Do they stand a chance of making it? I think everybody stands a chance of making it if they have something to offer.
I think it's reasonably healthy, in as much the last year or two we've seen bands like ourselves and DC9, a few others coming to the fore, playing a sort of music that hasn't been seen in Dublin. It's a reflection of what's going on across the water, of course. I think it is healthy, yes. But as regards the other sorts of music, like the old style music played by bands like Staggerly and the others, they're working away at it. But I don't think the future's too bright. I think they're evolving into a show band type circuit, which is unfortunate.
Do you think the show band circuit still exists?
I know it exists, and I think it'll survive in years to come. But the danger, I think, is that the new bands of today, is that if they don't find openings for their music and outlets in form of record contracts and what have you, that they'll eventually they too will evolve into show bands, and that's the way of the world. I think it's a fact of life. And
do you think that the success of the Rats has opened the road for bands, or is it the other way around?
It's Absolutely, it's been an inspiration more than anything else. I don't think the Rats have actually opened up gates in the form of like led bands to the doors of record companies, but they've given them bands inspiration and shown that a band that started off in Dublin on a small scale, played dates around the country and eventually achieved world fame. I think people involved in music, they get into music because they like it, not because they think it's going to be a shortcut to stardom. That's a myth. I think that's...
What other myths? We hear a lot, I suppose, in
you
papers or whatever, about groupies and drugs and sex
and drugs. Well, of course, it's part and parcel of the business. It's part of the it's what perhaps it draws a lot of young people to rock music. They think that if they achieve some sort of success in a band, that they'll have access to mind-bending drugs and lots of sex, which is true half of the time. I've taken most types of drugs myself. I enjoy them. I enjoy drinking as well, but in moderation, of course. And
how about mind-bending sex?
Love it, but I have a steady girlfriend of 3 years standing. I hope she's listening to this. Are you there?
What about this stardom thing? Does it affect you on stage? Do you want to be a star?
I must say, it's impossible not to feel the ego thing in rock music, because when you're up on a stage in front of people, it's the sort of music that we're playing in the Atrix. It's not laid-back music where we're quietly sort of positioned around on a stage playing music and hoping that people will warm to it. It's very outgoing. We're putting ourselves up on a platform and hoping, like, not just as musicians but as people as well. I think the stardom thing, it is, you have to face up to it, that when you're on a stage in front of people, putting yourself up to people as a musician and as a person, there is a tendency for one's ego to become inflated. And when, say, after a great big date, say in front of a couple of thousand people, and you get rapturous applause, screams of more and more, you can't but feel that people need you, that you're something special. And I think we've been together for 3 years now, and I'd like to think that the bad side of stardom isn't going to get a grip on me, and I'm going to suffer as a result. I'm going to become an obnoxious creep.
How does the political and social situation in Ireland affect you?
Badly.
How so?
Well, for me, like, as sort of, I'm confronted with a situation where I must write words for songs, and like living in this country is incredibly frustrating.
Why?
Yeah, well, I mean, I can't tell anybody in the country anymore about, like, the current sort of tension that's in the country, that exists politically, like on a border level and so forth, like my own feelings on that, well, I'll sort of keep them in there, but it's very hard not to sort of allow the frustration with that kind of tension, and also the tension with, like, the current sort of government and the one before, and possibly the one to come, more than likely the one to come, where it's just so bloody difficult to get your rent together, like your food together here, anything, the country is closed up at 11:30 at night, and I mean closed up, and people are just they're just so tight with their ideas, like everybody's going around like mares, like with, the flappers on the side of their head,
Another point there is that, see that in times like these when things are bad, that people look for entertainment, they look for an outlet. And I think in the entertainment business and the music business in particular, this comes out, that people look to music as an expression of something that's not there, that they need the entertainment.
Do you think that people, especially young people, care more about music now in these days?
I think they have to care more about music. Like, it's not so much that they do or they don't. They have to.
Right.
Because it's the only voice talking to young people at the moment that means anything. I believe that. Like, I don't even believe I know that.
Media is such a null, pervasive influence at the moment that no matter what sort of music you're playing, it's affecting people. And for young people, like you turn on, you're listening to the radio all day. It's having an unbelievable effect. An effect I don't think that people don't appreciate.
They don't even appreciate the effect it's having on themselves, you know.
You were a published poet before you joined the Atrix.
Yeah, I was, but I mean that was. Yes, I was indeed. Yeah, but it's. I've always sort of been writing. At the moment, my function in the band has been more or less lyricist, and it came out of the fact that I've been writing poetry since I was sort of 8.
Do you think some people might, you know, view the Atrix as maybe having pretensions beyond their means, or being pretentious as whole, perhaps this poetry angle, or even the backgrounds to various members of the bands?
Well, they probably have, you know, and if they have a sort of the wrong idea. If you're working in music that isn't sort of straight rock or straight rock and roll or straight folk or straight opera or straight, you know, we're working in sort of unknown territory. You know, it's a constant experiment. So therefore, some people would get the idea. Yes, it's pretentious, you know, because they can't relate to it. But they will be able to relate to it when they hear it, and you know, when they buy the album or whatever it is. Then I don't think there'll be any room for such words as pretension at that point. You know.
What happens if you don't, as I would say, make it? A lot of people seem to want to make it these days.
You know, like making it and not making it. I mean. We will make it, like whatever. Once again, it's down to one's concept of making it, you know. Like my concept of making it is very much like to be at one with the music that we're making, and you know, obviously to sort of have a jangle in my pocket from it, you know what I mean, that I can live and that I'll hopefully have enough money to sort of expand. Like music costs a lot of money to make, I'm sure you know yourself, and you know, that's the first impetus, you know, to make it, is to sort of rig ourselves out with what we want, you know. Do you know what I mean? If we want a polymoog, you know, right, you know, it takes money.
How important is money to you personally?
To me personally, well, it's very important. I suppose as important as anybody. I need the price of, you know, whatever, like a drink, food, you know, I've got to pay rent, you know, that's how important it is. But money on the level of limousines and that, like at this stage in my life or my career, doesn't really turn me on, you know.